After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by one of our magical Unbound Press authors, Elizabeth Nguyen, who is author of Aloha Vietnam, one of our latest releases. And it's a fiction book, which is so exciting. I always love it when we get to release some fiction into the world. This is the most incredible story that Elizabeth has written. And Elizabeth herself, she is a Vietnamese American writer who was born and raised in Honolulu in Hawaii. And in Aloha Vietnam, she pulls on both of those aspects, like the Vietnamese background and also what it's like to live in Hawaii. Also touches strongly on mental illness, which again is drawing on Elizabeth's experience and background as a multidimensional psychiatrist. So there's so much to dive into in this conversation. I'm really excited to share it with you. So let's get into it. So Elizabeth, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club.
Thank you, Nicola. So happy to be here.
Oh, me too. I'm very excited for us to have this conversation. And I always begin with the same question, which is, what does it mean to you to be an unbound writer?
To be an unbound writer is to just feel so free to express myself as a writer. And it's such an honor to really own myself as a writer. I think, I've always wanted to be a writer, and I have been a writer, but to be a published unbound writer feels so freeing. So that's what it means to me. It means to be free.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. I love that. And yeah, I'm so interested to dive into more of the story around your book, or your first book, Aloha Vietnam, which came out. It was a little bit of a surprise that it did manage to come out by the end of 2022. It's like, is it going to make it or not? And it did. It obviously wanted to be birthed in 2022. But can you tell us a little bit of the story behind Aloha Vietnam?
Sure, I would love to. And I do love the birth story a little
Yeah.
bit. I love birth stories. And so I remember when we first chatted, Nicola, I had this vision that I would love to have my first book be published by Christmas time so that people could have it in their hands by Christmas. But as you know, with book publishing, there's so many factors that come into that. But that desire to have this baby, it really felt like a baby to be in my hands and the hands of others by this past Christmas was so strong and so powerful that it literally had a life of its own. And that's what happens with babies. They just come when they are ready to come. And this baby wanted to come before Christmas on solstice. But let me tell you a little bit about the story behind Aloha Vietnam. So Aloha Vietnam is such a personal story for me on so many levels. I wrote the manuscript mostly about 6 years ago because I just knew that I wanted to write this down. There were so many things that I wanted to capture in this book around growing up Vietnamese American in Honolulu from a family of Vietnamese refugees, and then my own personal and experiences working in the mental health field and my personal and family experiences with mental illness. There was just so much that I knew I wanted to share. And it just took some time. It took some time to find the timing for it to come out. But it's the story, it's a fictional story of an adolescent girl, Anh, whose family are refugees from Vietnam, and they settle in Honolulu, Hawaii. It follows the family's journey of settling into a new land and all the cross-cultural experiences that come with that. And then Anh develops bipolar disorder as an adolescent, which is kind of the time that bipolar comes out, and then just her and her family's journey with navigating mental health, mental illness, the cross-cultural, process of that, and then also the grief and loss of leaving behind their homeland and settling into a new life. So many, many themes there that wanted to be conveyed and captured.
Yeah, and the way you weave them together is just so powerful. You tell such an amazing story in the book. I'm curious to know, did you always intend that this would be a fictional book, or did you ever feel called to write kind of more of a memoir based book about your experiences?
Yeah, I know there's a memoir in me, but I honestly feel like that memoir is going to come later in my life when I have more to share from an older perspective. But it's interesting. I definitely wanted to capture some autobiographical details of growing up in Vietnamese American in Honolulu. But as I fell into the energy of this book from the beginning, it felt like the book and the story and then the character itself had a life of her own. And she did not want to be bound. This is sort of what we were talking about as we started. She did not want to be bound by the facts of what truly happened. She wanted more expression. My story wanted more expression. My story wanted more creative freedom and liberty to draw in what it wanted. So I think there was always some thought of how autobiographical to be, but really it wanted to be fiction so that there could be more freedom to bring in more magic.
I love that. Yeah, I can really feel the freedom of that, and just being able to kind of write to your edges and just allow whatever wanted to come through. So what was the writing process like, Elizabeth? You said it was 6 years ago or so when you wrote the main body of the manuscript. And how was that? Because I'm kind of in awe of anyone who writes fiction. We have a few fiction authors now at the Unbound Press, and I'm like, how do you do this? So I'm
I'd love to talk to you more about this because I get a lot of questions about this too. And
Mm.
I'm like the opposite. I'm in awe of anyone who can sit down and write like sort of nonfiction, because I find fiction so much easier to write because there's no rules.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no one that I don't have to cite anything, or I don't have to, make an argument. I can just freely express. So I want to say, I really want this to share my writing process. I really want to let people who are writers out there, especially busy working moms, know that if you're a writer, you just need to write. And I I'm actually in awe of myself to be like, how did I find the time to write with being a working physician, a psychiatrist, having two young children? I don't even remember. I just remember like setting aside time to write, and it wasn't consistent because it's hard to find consistent time when you're a busy working mom that way. But it was such a personal voice that wanted to come through, that I felt like whenever I sat down to write, it just flowed so personally because I wasn't censoring myself. I had no agenda. I just really felt like I just need to sit down and write whatever wants to come through and then let it come through. And for most of it, it came through very easily. Obviously, there was a lot of reworking I had to do around just putting the story together, but the original manuscript felt very, very similar to what is the finished product in terms of the voice and the flow. And it always, I sit down, I just write whatever feels called to me in the moment. Yeah.
You are making it sound so pleasurable. Like I really feel like I want to have that experience now of just giving myself permission to write fiction and just write whatever wants
Well,
to come.
it is pleasurable, and it's freeing when you write personally, but from fiction, because I find the marriage of both worlds for me, where I can use my personal experiences and what lights me up. But then once I get into the flow, I don't have to stick to anything. I can just go where it flows and what imagination and creativity comes in. So I feel like writing personally, but then allowing yourself to write fictionally is that beautiful marriage. And don't get me wrong, it was not all pleasurable. So definitely frustrating and challenging at times. But if you're a writer, and I know that anyone listening to this is a writer,
Mhm.
you're a writer, you just know that calling of needing to write. And it's the same way of like, I make time to do yoga, I make time to go swimming. Like, my body feels like I need to make time to write.
Yeah, yeah. You can't not write. Like it
Yeah,
has
you
to
have to,
happen.
it blocks things up. Yeah.
Yeah. As you're talking about your process with writing there, Elizabeth, I'm wondering whether it's the same with your art, with your painting, because you paint as well. And there's an interesting story about that in the book cover, which we'll dive into. But is it a similar kind of process with the painting, or does that feel very different to the writing?
It feels similar in some ways, that when I actually carve the time and can sit there and paint, it flows. But I am much more blocked in my painting. And I will like very much own that and hope that it gets unblocked down the road, just because there are only so many hours in the day. I've already talked about, after doctoring and mothering and feeding and myself and writing, I just don't have enough time to paint. But I know that's purely a time logistical issue, that if I made the time to paint the way I make to write, it would probably flow more. And it's seasons of life. My painting will take up more time as I move through the
Yeah.
seasons of my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, your painting is taking up some space on the cover of Aloha Vietnam as well, which I just love that we got to do that includes some of your artwork.
Yeah, that was such a special story to me. So the art work on the cover of Aloha Vietnam is an original artwork acrylic painting that I did years ago. And there's a story behind the cover of the book. So as I was getting ready to bring this book into the world, I just knew I needed a Vietnamese soul to express the cover. I wanted this book to be a Vietnamese soul through and through. I knew the words were my soul and I'm a Vietnamese soul, but I just knew that the cover needed to also be an expression of a Vietnamese soul. And so I started like looking around. I had this Vietnamese artist in mind and was chatting with her about commissioning some art for the cover. And then to be honest, it just was getting to be a lot of like, a financial commitment to be like, oh my goodness, like to commission an original artwork for something like this. I was just like, gosh, I don't know if I should invest that right now. And then literally, it felt so magical. Literally, I think the conversation was meant to awaken in me that, oh, what I'm asking this artist to do for my book, I actually think I have a piece that could do that. And it just magically trickled into my consciousness. I think I like immediately emailed you and Emma and our designer around Leah. Could I use just a piece of art that I've painted in the past? And you guys were all like, yes, you can do that. I'm like, what do I do? Just take a picture of it on my iPhone? And Leah's like, yes, just do that. And it was a moment of owning myself as an artist, not just a writer, but as an artist. And that's so similar to the theme in the book for our protagonist, Aing, who's really an artist. She's an artist who is, because of her just upbringing in a traditional Vietnamese American family, her own mental illness, she's struggling with owning her art. And so it felt like such a double story for me as the mother of this book, to me to own myself as an artist and to put my art on the cover. It really felt like there was symbolism there for myself and for the book and for Aang and the mission of this story. So it was really special. And I just love it. I just love looking at my book and seeing, that art reflected back at me.
Me too. Me too. It's absolutely stunning. And, as you were talking about it there, Elizabeth, it feels like healing on so many different levels. The fact that, you were able to use your own artwork on the cover. And like, as you say, it kind of reflects something in Ang's story as well, which is just so beautiful.
Yes, Nicola, and I really wanted to touch on that theme of multidimensional healing, which is really the mission. One of the missions, because it's multidimensional. There's like so many missions of this book, but it's a book of multidimensional love and healing, and that story is just one of literally so many stories of magic and healing that I've experienced personally writing this book, bringing it into the world, and then literally all the ripple effects it has in the healing of my family, my relationships. And then everybody who reads the book, they come back to me with their own stories of, wow, this opened up that for me. This opened up that, this, and that's really one of the missions is like water. I work a lot with the consciousness of water. This and water is a multidimensional healing element. This book, when you receive it just is meant to touch you and open you in places for your own multidimensional healing in whatever unique way that it will for you.
Oh, yes. That's what I'm here for. I love it. Each of these books, they get to activate transformation and healing in the world in so many different ways. I love how you describe that. So I want to pick up on one of the themes from the book, which is mental health and like the stigma often that there can be around mental health issues, feeling shame around that. And this is the journey that the protagonist of the story, Anne, goes on. And obviously it relates like to the work that you're doing in the world as well. As a multidimensional psychiatrist, I just love that. So can you speak a little bit more to
I'd
that?
love to, because this is definitely one of the main hopes and dreams and goals of the book, is to decrease stigma around mental illness, to bring more healing to those suffering from mental health struggles, from my own personal and my family's experiences with mental illness. And then working as a psychiatrist, I just know that this is a common human experience and struggle. I don't think anyone doesn't either personally have experienced it or know someone very close to them who has gone through it. And yet there's still so much stigma. There's still so much shame and misunderstanding around what it is, and how to work with it, and heal from it, and get better from it. So one of the main themes of this book was just to know that there's healing just in sharing your story. I mean, there's so many aspects of dealing with mental illness, and the healing journey. And again, there's again, multidimensional. But one of them is just to know that even by reading this story and hearing anything that reflected in the story that can shed light to your own personal story, or anyone that you've known, it creates an opening. It creates an opening for us all to talk more honestly and vulnerably about these very challenging topics that have been really hidden away for so long. And I know just by talking about it, just by sharing a voice and story, that will encourage other people to share their voice and story, can bring healing. So obviously, opening that might encourage people to seek support and treatment, but just even receiving and sharing a story can bring healing. And I truly know that and see that in my work every day. Like, this is why therapy works. And sometimes clients who have kept a story hidden for years, and they're like, they finally share it. There's so much healing that comes just from being able to share something they've kept hidden away. So I really hope that this book just opens the conversation, and creates safety for people to share.
Yeah. Yeah. That word safety feels important. I was just thinking as you were speaking there, the fact that this is a fiction book, it feels like that kind of can create more safety in a way, and being a conversation opener, even if it's just like an internal conversation that somebody has as they're reading it, because somebody might not feel comfortable maybe going out and getting a book about bipolar, like a non-fiction book, because they may still be in that place of feeling shame or wanting to hide a condition that they have or that somebody that they know has. Whereas when it's a story, it's a book of fiction, there's something there again around freedom. It might feel more comfortable for somebody to have that experience of reading a story rather than kind of a textbook or a non-fiction book.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Nicola. I think, I didn't even think that wasn't a conscious intention, but I think there is something first of all, we need safety. We need safety to be vulnerable. We need safety to share our truths. And in mental health, especially, we need safety to feel that what we share is going to be received with kindness, with understanding, with graciousness. And I think that the feedback I've gotten from people has been just that, has been kindness and understanding. And I think there's always it's interesting, people want to know, like, what happened, like, tell me. And I would want to say that there's a part of me in every character in this story, because I really have wanted to speak from all the people that mental illness impacts. It's not only the diagnosed patient. It's like everyone around them has a story to share. And that's the important message of this book, is that your story, whatever it is, it's important. And even if you can just reflect on your story and share to whatever you want to feel safe. There's no proscription or prescription about what needs to be shared
Yeah.
about this book or after reading this book. It's about you yourself just reflecting.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Having that personal experience, a personal relationship with the book. So powerful. What's your experience been, Elizabeth, now that the book is going out into the world, like around the release? How's it been for you?
It feels so good. It just feels so good, Nicola. So it's been a lifelong dream to publish a book, to be a published author. It was just one of those like soul knowings from a very young age. Like I remember like writing when I was like in elementary school, just knowing like I just wanted to keep writing and I wanted to one day publish a book. And to finally have that be like a dream that I can hold in my hands feels really good. Just so first of all, it just feels really good. And it just feels like a surrender to my soul, to follow wherever the energies, not only of this book, but the energies of my soul and how my soul wants to continue to be expressed. And that's how I want to live my life. So it just feels like so much, again, that we're starting back with freedom and flow. It feels really good. It feels like I get to do what my soul wants me to do, and can't beat that.
You definitely can't. No. When we let the soul lead, that's the
Yeah.
way.
And we feel like we have the freedom to do so, to follow our soul. It really feels like, yeah, you can't
Yeah,
ask for anything more.
exactly. Exactly. So what's next? Is there more writing happening? I think that might
Definitely. There's definitely more writing happening. I just, publishing this book was a real milestone for me in owning myself as a writer who just not only writes personally with like hundreds of journals in her closet that she still moves on every move that she makes, but owning myself that I have a published book out there that I can share with others. And it's really just made me realize, not even made me realize, it's just been, I've reached this point in my journey where I'm like, I am a writer. I need to keep on writing. I want to keep on writing. More of my writing is meant to be out into the world. So I've already started the sequel of Aloha Vietnam, just because Ang's story, Swan's story, this family's story, just wanted to continue. I knew when I finished this book that it wasn't done, but I just like writers, I just knew I needed to stop it here because there was so much more that wanted to come. And I just like, I'll save it for the next book or books. And that's already been moving. So I definitely want to write the sequel to Aloha Vietnam. I have a million other writing projects that I want to do, poetry, writing about my water work, the wisdom of working with water. So I just know, like, one thing at a time, but the sequel is probably taking my writing energy right now.
fantastic. So excited about that. Can't wait to kind of read the continuing story because it's such a powerful one. I enjoyed it so much. Like obviously when I get the manuscripts for the first time, I'm reading it as a publisher, but also a reader. And as a reader, I just loved reading Aloha Vietnam. So thank you so much for writing this magical book, Elizabeth.
Thank you for helping me bring it into the world so magically, really, Nicola. I mean, I didn't know much about publishing before I came to the Unbound Press, but it was so highly reviewed by close, trusted soul colleagues. And I have to confess, it was a truly magical experience of letting my soul be completely unfiltered and expressed, So I had such a magical time birthing this through your
Oh,
Unbound press.
oh, that's so good to hear. That's, absolutely our intention. So it makes me so happy to know that you had that experience. And for those who are listening to this and would like to find out more about you and the work that you're doing in the world, Elizabeth, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way, let's see, just my website is multidimensionalpsychiatry.com. I'm on social media, Facebook, Elizabeth Nguyen, MD, Instagram, multidimensional psychiatry. I also run a Waterkeepers community. So I'm also at waterkeeperscommunity.com. Yeah, and then I just want to leave with a little sharing about the name of the title
Yeah,
of the book.
absolutely. Yeah, we haven't
You know,
touched
it's so interesting. I had a different title for the book the entire time, and I won't share it because it might be used for the sequel,
Yeah.
but I had a different name for this book the entire time I was writing it. It just goes to show how you just have to trust the energy. So this book was named something else for like the last 6 years. And then like literally like the few months before the birth of this book, there was just some trickling into my consciousness of does it want to be named something else? And then this title, Aloha Vietnam, just came to me. I don't even remember how. It literally just came to me one day. And I'm like, I'm going to earmark that because it really speaks to me. But I'm just going to keep playing with it and the other title. But by the end, it just became so clear that this is the title, that this is the name. It's not a title. This is the name that this book wants to have. And there's multiple meanings. There's three meanings to aloha. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and aloha means hello, it means goodbye, and it also means love. And I really felt like Aloha Vietnam is really what this book wants to be named because there's a story behind the Vietnamese ancestral lineage of healing around the refugee experience of having to leave our motherland in the time of war. And for so many of us where that happened, whether we were the ones who left or the ones who stayed behind, there was this huge rupture in the Vietnamese psyche and consciousness around not being able to properly say goodbye to our motherland, to our family, to our lives, to our loved ones, to a whole history of who we are. And then almost just as suddenly, for those of us who did leave, and for those of us who did stay behind, life just was like, say hello to your new life. There was no time to process this whole experience of this rupture, either the saying goodbye part or saying hello to the new life part. And so much of the healing that this book is meant to activate is an opportunity for my people and for people who I know is a common human story of grief and loss. When we haven't had an opportunity to really process a loss, a rupture, a transition, saying goodbye and then saying hello to an ending and a beginning, there's so much that's caught up in that inability to really honor that transition. So this book was really meant to provide a space and opportunity for that processing of the loss and grief of the motherland, and also the beginning of a new life, the beginning of a new journey, and then love, the other meaning of love, and probably the most important meaning of aloha, which is love, knowing that there was love surrounding all of this at all times that really will allow this trauma, this rupture to heal. It's really the love that's always been there, the love that continues to be there, that will really heal this hello and goodbye, this loss and grief, this ending and the beginning. And so, it's so clear to me now that Aloha Vietnam is what the book wanted to be named, so that I could really convey that message in the title, in the story, and to the readers.
Oh, yes. Yes. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. because the piece about the title of the book, the name of the book, I know writers and those listening to this, sometimes we can struggle with it. Like either you might not have a name for your book, or you've got one, but it doesn't feel quite right. And like you say, something can drop in like a long way into the process. Your book will let you know what it wants to be named. And I love that your book did in such a powerful way. I mean, again, it just feels like this is all part of the multi-dimensional process and the multi-dimensional being that this book is. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's just been such a joy to have this conversation.
Thank you, Nicola, for creating this space for the Unbound Press, Unbound writers, for the space for me to talk about my book. And I just, look forward to continuing the Unbound journey.
Yeah. I look forward to hearing what happens next for the story. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.